and welcome back to In with Denoux.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of In with Denoux featuring Jordan Shannon. I am Chase Denoux, and this is Jordan Shannon. And we just kind of wanted to introduce you guys to the podcast, let you know what we're going to be talking about, and also how we got the name. Obviously, my last name is Denoux, but as a child, you know, when you go to school for the first day and everyone's getting their name called for roll call and your name gets mispronounced. That happened to me a lot as a kid. And so my dad and my grandfather as well, to my dad, told me the first day of school, if the teacher mispronounces your name, to tell them it's in with or out with the old and in with Denoux. And so that's kind of how the podcast name came to be. But it also doubles as something that we just want to preach and promote, is that lots of times there's things in your life and you just want to get rid of the old things and bring in new things. And so we're hoping that that mantra, that motto, that title of our podcast can really shine through. Is if you want to get rid of old habits in your life and start new, we hope we can help you to do that, because we've done that plenty of times in our life. So I just want to throw it to Jordan, let him say a few things, and we'll get started with the podcast.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man. Chase is a good friend, and when we talked about having a podcast just around new perspectives, I was ready to jump on it. So, background about me: my name is George Shannon. My last name is not as cool as Denoux, right? Just, especially when you see my name fully spelled out, Jordan Shannon, and my middle name is Patrick. So you see Jordan Patrick Shannon, you don't think black man, you think white woman with red hair. That's not me. I'm very black. And my background is like I'm from Florida. You know, I got the Florida hoodie on, and Chase and I bonded over that like years ago, like
Yeah.
decade ago, and so it's been this is my boy. Like we talk pretty frequently. We've seen some highs and lows together of just being
Yeah.
broke together. To
Yes, for
just to
sure.
dating to
Yeah.
like we I remember just looking through couches for change and stuff, man, and going to Steak and Shake or Moe's down in Gainesville, man.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and we survived on those types of meals, man. But we're here in 2025
Yeah.
talking about just new things that have just helped us keep growing, both spiritually, physically, psychologically, emotionally, and what has kind of kept us going even when we face different types of trials, whether it be physical health, whether it be our mental health, whether it be, just emotional relationship. And almost honestly, a lot of our friendship is just kicking back and having fun and having some
Yeah.
laughs. And so
Absolutely.
we hope that you all experience that too as we embark on this. And yeah, we're excited, um, excited to dive into these topics today.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So also, this is our very first episode. We're getting used to everything. So bear with us. We hope that you enjoy the content as we move forward, and we hope to improve each and every week. Whether it's better equipment, just getting better speaking to the camera, also having our topics ready. So just bear with us. You know, we want you guys to get to know the real us. We don't want to do a ton of editing and a ton of scripting. We want to be as free flow as possible. And if we need to switch up, we will. But we want to do what you guys want to hear. So if you guys have any suggestions, any feedback, please let us know. You can DM us. If you know us personally, you can text us. We're happy to hear the feedback. And it's crazy because Jordan said, we've known each other for about a decade, but I think sometimes we feel like we're younger than we are, because I'm pretty sure we met in 2011. So 14 years ago, going on 15 years ago. And like Jordan said, we
Wait,
met
that's
in
not
Gainesville,
yesterday?
Florida. Right, I know, bro. Like time flies, and it doesn't feel like 14 years ago. And I was thinking back this week as we were talking about starting this podcast this week, and we met in campus ministry. We went to the same church, but I had moved. So I had lived in Gainesville for a few years, then moved to Orlando for a year. And during the time when I was in Orlando, Jordan had kind of become a part of the campus ministry in Gainesville that I was a part of. And the following year, I moved back to Gainesville. So we met, I think it was your freshman year or whatever, and
Hmm.
or no, not your
Yeah.
freshman year, because you were in Tallahassee for a few years and then you came back to Gainesville. So we met at a frisbee night, ultimate frisbee night, and it's crazy because I don't know if you remember this, but the first thing I remember hearing Jordan talk about was High School Musical, which I don't know. I don't know if you remember this, but I'm about to cancel myself for toxic masculinity in the very first episode. But I was like, who is this man talking? Who is this big dude? This big old athletic dude talking about High School Musical and like how much he loves High School Musical. And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna vibe with this guy. And here we are, 14 years later, best friends, doing a podcast together from across the country. I'm in Charlotte. He's in Seattle right now. So, but yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, man. The High School Musical, no joke. I used to talk about all those Disney stuff. Um, I don't know what it is. You know what's so funny, bro? Like even during that time, I remember it was you and then also Jessica Jones said something to me. Like they said when I don't speak, I just come up to people. They're like, "Oh yeah, you seem pretty intimidating at first glance, right?" Like which obvious, you know, like like if I just have this like stoic face, like you don't know what to think, right? But then I smile and
Right.
then it's like, oh, okay, I was not expecting that out of
Teddy
me.
bear.
Or like,
Yeah.
teddy bear, straight up. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm fun, right? Like,
Yeah, man, it's crazy. But man, I look back on so much those times with so much fondness, and I'm grateful for our friendship, and I hope that we can invite people into our friendship. I feel like some of the things that attract people to podcasts and things like that are the topics and how smart people are, how great speakers they are. But I really hope that a lot of this podcast just pulls you in because of our friendship. Whether you've lost contact with a really great friend of yours and you want to reconnect, hopefully we can inspire you to do so, or if you just need a friend, hopefully we can be a friend from afar, and get to know some of our audience as well. But we're just grateful to be here. Thanks for joining us. And as we jump into the first episode, because me and Jordan are kind of reconnecting, like you said, we do talk frequently, but obviously we live across the country. I was a groomsman in his wedding in New York when he lived in New York. And so we're just kind of reconnecting, and we've been talking much more frequently over the last handful of months, which I've been super grateful for. And we just thought, what better topic to do the first episode than the lost art of connection? And so what we want to talk about is we both kind of grew up in that last generation where we didn't necessarily have cell phones our whole childhood. I didn't have my first cell phone until I was a sophomore in high school, I believe. And so we
yeah,
had a very different form of connection back then. And I think it's something that's been lost. And not everybody, the older generation still like has a hard time with technology and values the art of connection. And so we just kind of want to talk about how it's affected us, kind of like our move through not having cell phones to now having to deal with cell phones. And Jordan's a father now, so he's going to have to deal with when his son's old enough to have a cell phone, how to navigate those waters, how early do you give a child a cell phone, all those things. But I've just been grateful for the connection that Jordan and I have and being able to reconnect. And we wish we could do it face to face. And hopefully we'll have some episodes in the future where we'll be together and be able to film them in the same room. But Jordan, I just want to ask you, man, when you think about connection, what do you think about? I mean, I know it's different now, but when you think about from when you were younger to now, what do you feel like has been lost in the world, and what do you feel like how it's affecting, our culture today?
yeah. I think you put it. You brought up the phone, right? Um, I got my first cell phone back in high school freshman year. So, and this was 2006 ish.
Yeah.
And I remember around that time, I think it was just this transition to texting, which texting is a good way of communicating. I mean, that's what we
Yeah.
mostly use, but like I distinctly remember a shift from us using phone calls and minutes to now like using the text, right? Like none of us really
Right.
wanted to talk on the phone anymore. And it was around like that '05 to '07 range. And I think something about that is like obviously for folks like with us, like the anxiety, like, oh snap, what do I say? How do I keep this person engaged? Like, what do we talk about? Kind of like worried about like maybe some of those awkwardness, right? Uh, the challenge, I guess, with that is we switch to texting because it gives us a chance to reflect and sit, but then sometimes we just don't sit in the moment and just like let things happen organically, right? And
Right.
part of school, or I don't know, maybe I don't know. You tell me. Like, I feel like being in school and having a place where school can be a lot of things, like in terms of like it can be a great support for people, but it can also be just like very overwhelming and just like they ain't got nothing for me here, especially within the
Right.
classroom, right? But like when you're in a club or sports, right? Like there's already these avenues for just connecting organically, right? Like you mentioned frisbee
Right.
in campus. Like back when we were in campus, there was a lot of physical activity and stuff that we did that helped us to
Hmm.
socialize with people, right? Like we did, it wasn't just ultimate, it was like softball or kickball or flag football,
Right.
right? Like there was just a lot of just activity happening where people could just connect, and we didn't have time to be on the phones. But I think that's something that we become so accustomed to just kind of keeping things either through text or digital, and
Right.
become reliant on it to the point where that's our form of connection. And you see that within social media too, right? Like you see people like creating personas on their Facebook, and it may not even just be on Facebook anymore. It's like TikTok or Twitter or X, excuse me. I mean, I call it Twitter,
Hmm.
frankly.
Hmm.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like Elon can come after me.
It will always
We
be
call
Twitter.
it Twitter. It'll always be Twitter, right? But it's like those and Snapchat, Instagram, right? Like all those different social media, which social media in and of itself is not bad. It's really good. I think it's good for us, right? Like that's how we've been able to, stay
Right.
connected in some ways, right? But I also think we become so reliant on it that we just lost times like this where we could just like, chat face to face, even though it's virtual, right? Like it's still
Yeah.
like some form of face to face communication. And I also think,
Yeah.
kind of coming back to what I said about phone calls and texting, we're anxious, man. We we talk
Yeah.
about Gen Z being the anxious generation, but I feel like millennials, we kind of like we kind of like ushered in that anxiety with like us shifting away
Yeah.
from just catching up with people and being organic with people. And I think some of us, like especially on the older end of the millennial side, I say us. I'm a '92 baby. I'm not an older millennial, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
think I think when I think about like some of us are more naturally gifted at like talking and being connected that way,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
many of us we kind of grew up with this sense of like social anxiety. And
Yeah.
I'll say from my own experience, a lot of that was informed by movies, right? Like I'm thinking about like High School
Hmm.
Musical and maybe some of the awkwardness that happened in those conversations, or thinking about like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
shows that we grew up watching, right? And thinking like, oh, is that how you talk to people or talk to women, talk to girls?
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
and I don't want to
Yeah.
be corny, or I don't want to be cheesy, or all these things, right? Or I'm trying to be
Right.
like Fresh Prince, and that stuff wouldn't
Yeah.
fly. Fresh Prince trying to say that to women, right? Like if you Will Smith, it flies, but it don't fly if you someone else.
Right. Yeah, man. And it's crazy because like I think that when I think back to the things you're talking about phones and texting, how we communicate, I think about the times when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, that the years I didn't have a phone, even the years I did have a phone, but specifically the years I didn't have a phone, I would leave home after getting home from middle school, like I'm the only one home or me and my sister are home, and I would go
Mhm.
play basketball for 6 hours, and it's like my parents don't know exactly where I am. So I think that there are things about technology, obviously, like
Yeah,
if you have a child, you can see their location. There's things that are, um, you know, safer about that. But at the same time, so yeah, but yeah, I think like those times where, you're out and about and you don't have your phone, like thinking about now leaving the house for 6 hours without having my phone, I'm like, what would I do? Like, what the heck would I do? And I don't even mean like how would I operate. I mean like what you're talking about, anxiety. I feel like the phone created the anxiety, but now you get anxiety when you don't have the thing that causes the anxiety. It's like
Yeah.
when I was with my friends playing basketball, I wasn't thinking about who's texting me or whatever. I'm connecting with my friends in
Hmm.
person, and there's nowhere else I want,
Yep.
like ever anywhere else I wanted to be, but on the basketball court. And that's me specifically. Like I loved basketball. That was kind of my form of peace growing up. I could do it in any mood that I was in, whether I was happy, sad, frustrated, mad, and it would help in some form or fashion. Whether it was just me by myself with my basketball in a court, or if it was me and my friends playing and competing and things like that. So, but it's just crazy because now you have this escape, right? This disconnect, if you will, of the phone to where, like what you're saying, we have to work through the awkwardness. Like that first time we met, and I was like, who is this
Yeah.
guy talking about High School Musical? But we talked, we became friends. But now maybe that person
Mhm.
just goes off on their phone and they don't connect with this person because they think they're awkward or they won't get along or whatever. And sometimes you're missing out on a best friendship, or someone that could help you in that moment. So I think that it's just so important to encourage everyone, but like specifically the youth, to really connect and face to face connect and have those skills to communicate. And working with teens at the church for many years and working with the parents and all that, it's just something that I noticed was how much, and I don't mean this as like a slight, it's just the culture that we now have, is the awkwardness, especially between like men and women, like opposite sex, of not knowing how
Hmm.
to speak.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like just be normal. Like you don't have to talk to, like obviously there's nuances, specifically also in like if you're talking about Christianity or whatever, and you're trying to have purity and all those type of things, but also just, but outside of those things, it's like just talk to someone as you would talk to your best friend. It doesn't have to be any different.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be awkward or whatever. And I think that that lost connection of in person speaking and even when you are in person, people are locked in on their phones, and so. I think that that served
Hmm.
us well, and I'm grateful we were in the generation where we didn't have phones our whole childhood, and I am grateful for the phones now. Like it would be hard to do this without computers and phones and technology.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that there's this art form that's being lost as our world gets older, and so in some ways, as our world gets older, in some ways, and newer than in others. So I just
As
appreciate
you
that.
even
So
mentioned, like, yeah, yeah, yeah. As you even mentioned, like the 6 hours of being able to go and play basketball and not worry about your phone, right?
yeah,
Like, I'm even thinking about for my son, like, my son's only 2, but I can't even think of the idea of like him being 14 and him being away for
right,
6 hours, right? Because of
right,
just that's just the cultural around, right? And I'm thinking about like parents maybe now or 10 or 15 years ago that was just like leave my son or daughter or just my child for 6 hours. Like, what I'm gonna do?
yeah,
Like, what if I need to get a hold of them, like emergency, and just kind of like them projecting that anxiety onto them. And I see that, right? Like, I even see that within adults, young adults. We actually had a young man stay with us for a couple of days because he was coming out here to visit. Just not just like actually it was vacation in Seattle. Never been to Seattle. Cool dude, but he came out to visit, and there was a lot of anxiety around in his early 20s, a lot of anxiety just around like traveling to a new city. Like it's like I basically there was a lot of expectation and dependency on us, which I'm
hmm
like, no, you booked this trip. You should know how to navigate. Like, go meet people. Like this, like this is like this should not be very hard for you. Like, we didn't ask you to come out here. You came out
right,
here on your own. We volunteered to house you, but we can't be around you all the time. And this is a
right,
young adults, right? And some of the
hmm
things they internalized was a lot of anxiety around going to big, like their parents told them about be always on your guard in big cities. Be always on your
mm,
guard. And right, like that, and that that. How do you not internalize that anxiety, right? But speaking to something you said earlier around like the anxiety between men and women, yeah, yeah, right,
bro,
like, and sometimes it's also just like saying like we don't say enough to young men. I feel like to say like, hey. the the young women or young girls are just as awkward as you are when it comes to
Right.
talking about this. So
Right.
like
Yeah.
they don't know how you they're one, they might be like they don't know how you're gonna approach them, but also they don't have all the answers too. So why are you putting
Hmm.
this on yourself? It's like you're
Hmm.
both getting to know each other. Like why aren't like kind of like taking that pressure off. But
Right.
I think a lot of like I don't know, like maybe some expectations we have of ourselves or expectations we got from maybe our parents and siblings or maybe expectations we get from like popular media, right? All have a way of
Hmm.
like making us think, oh, we have to show up. This is how to sound smart, or this is how to sound
Right.
cool,
Right.
or this
Right.
is how to sound this. And it's like,
Yeah.
yo, like how do we show up as ourselves so that we can build those true
Yeah.
connections, those true friendships, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that what's crazy is that last part that you said about just being ourselves and how do we be ourselves in conversation and getting to know people. And I really do think that happens from having obviously a lot is your upbringing and your family and how you're raised, but also is who your friends are. Because I just know that
Mm,
so many of my friendships were so solid. I had so many great friends growing up. And obviously every friendship goes through ups and downs and whatnot. But I had friends where I could just be confident being myself. And so I became confident talking to people and having conversations. And I had mentors. I had guys that were older than me that looked out for me and taught me things. And so I just feel like that part of connection is huge too, right? Is having these friendships and obviously having a great family is a blessing that not everybody has. But I was definitely blessed to have a solid family. You were blessed to have a solid family and an older brother, and an older sister, and I have an older sister as well. So I do think that there's connections with that when you have great relationships with your siblings, especially if they're older than you. Then you can learn a lot through that. And I learned a lot from my sister, not just about communicating and building friendship, but also just having a woman's perspective, on things growing up
yeah.
to run by her, even if it didn't have to do with like romantic things or things with the opposite sex, but just in general life, and we still have that. And so I'm grateful for being blessed with the family that I have and the friends that I have. But I do think that the phone and being connected to the phone all the time and being disconnected from people in real life has caused this awkwardness, this shyness, this lack of confidence, and also it becomes this weirdness when it comes to talking out loud. And it's crazy because once you
Hmm.
instill that confidence, like I said, for many years I worked with high school students and their parents. And when you give a kid confidence and you kind of see them bloom, you see, man, this kid has so much to add. There's so much to say that they
Hmm.
didn't even know they had to say or to add. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think everyone has that. It doesn't mean to say that everyone has to be an extrovert, everyone has to be talkative all the time. I'm not an extrovert, like naturally. I mean, I'm very on the line. I have extrovert tendencies, but I'm an introvert naturally. But I think I've just been
Hmm.
given the confidence to know, okay, like I have something to add, and I have opinions. I have things that can help, that can add to the situation. And so having those connections has been, you know, a blessing and life changing, priceless. So, but yeah, I don't know if anything that being said strikes you with like your siblings and the friendships that you have, your family.
Yeah, I mean, I think about my siblings. I definitely took a lot more advice about the opposite sex from my brother than I
Mm-hmm.
did my parents or my sister.
Yeah.
And part of that might have just been the age gap. Like my brother and I are 2 years apart, or my sister and I are about 9 years apart. And
Mm-hmm.
I take like I now that we're all adults and we all have like our own kids and our own families, um, like I definitely am more inclined to hear both of them out more. But I do think like I'm thinking about my brother and just some of the advice he would give me back in the day. I'm like, my brother is the biggest supporter, but it's also his older brother, right? Like he has
Yeah.
his own way of trying to spit game, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but and he's his own personality. So me trying to take on what he's doing and try to do it his way is not gonna fly with me, right? Like he's much
Right.
more. Um, I would make the argument him and my sister are more extroverts
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
our in just in our personality, although which it would be very interesting to look at his life now because it doesn't seem like he's much of an extrovert now,
Mm-hmm.
but similar to you, right? Like view myself more as an introvert with the I can when I'm in spaces I can very much conform to like the space. If there's high energy in the room, I can match that.
Right.
But I can also recognize that that drains me. I can also recognize that
Yeah.
that's going like I need time to myself to decompress because that was just a lot to give. And I think, you know, like people do need to recognize that within themselves, like recognize what you need from yourself from that space. I would say, like, when it comes to friendships and connection, you shouldn't have to don't expect too much from yourself, especially when you're first
Hmm.
connecting with someone. I
Yeah.
think, like, at that Frisbee night, in Gainesville, I was just so happy to be a part of a community that I was open to really connecting with anyone, and you and I just clicked, right? Like
Yeah.
we bonded a lot over really like our love for sports,
Hmm.
because we were able to talk about that, and specifically our love for SEC sports, and we were able to talk,
Yes.
even though you
Yes.
went for LSU,
Yep.
even though you root for
Go
LSU,
Tigers.
like we were still able to bond. Hey, go Gators! You know what I'm saying? We were still able to bond and talk about those things, right? And in the Southeast, like where like you know people people get tired of talking about stuff like that all the time, but when you find
Yeah.
someone who shares the same passions with you like
Yeah.
that, it finds a way to bring aspects out of your personality that you wouldn't have ever seen
For
otherwise,
sure.
right? Like, because
For sure.
sometimes you're just trying to conform to the environment and just be like, all right, you know, I'm just
Yeah.
happy to be here, so I'm just gonna play the role and get to know people and stuff. But then there's some, you know, you'd be surprised. There'd be someone that you come across that shares the same interests as you. That's like you could say a random quote from a movie and they immediately get it, and it's like,
Yeah.
wow, who understands my humor? Because everyone can remember the popular quotes, right, from maybe this movie, from a Star Wars movie or Jurassic Park movie. But if I say something that was so obscure that you understand it, that tells me you look at the world or look at this film the same way I look at it, and
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. And I
Yeah.
want to get to know, and I want to connect more, right?
Right.
So sometimes I think with connecting, we can just start by lowering the stakes, right? Like know what you love, know what you love, know what you want to, you know, bond over, and don't
Right.
compromise that, but just like don't be afraid to put yourself out there, right?
Yeah. That's such a good point because I think that lots of times we do think of these connections as being this like deep, super,
Hmm.
difficult things when, like you said, it could be something silly. It could be, bonding over, I mean, sports isn't necessarily silly, but like
Facts.
quoting movies and, as you guys get to know
Yep.
Jordan, like I have a great memory, but Jordan remembers like every line of every movie that he loves of all time. So you'll hear that. So my memory works a little differently than that, but yeah, it can be something as silly as that, or as something that's in the grand scheme of things not as important as life, like sports. Like we love sports and it's important to us, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just something to enjoy. But it can create a deep connection through something that's not
Hmm.
really that deep. So although sports probably is deeper than it should be to us at times, but it can, but it's created this friendship where we do have these deep connections. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll cut this out, but even to the point where me going through a difficult time, and I've never really dealt with like you know harming myself or anything like that, but with everything
Hmm.
that's been going on with me recently, like Jordan even just calling me at night and staying up with me till 2 a.m. to make sure I'm good, like football contributed to that, you know what I mean? And not just talking
Yep.
about football. Obviously we've played flag football together, we've played in high
Hmm.
stake games together, been in the
Yep.
trenches. High stake to us anyways, not really on the national scale or anything like that, but we had fun together, we were goofy together, we traveled to play football together and stayed in hotels, stayed in people's homes, all these different things, and we just built all these memories that became this deep friendship. And so I think that's a really good point, is like Jordan said, it doesn't have to be high stakes. If you need a friend, just find someone that likes the same movies as you, that likes the same sport as you, that likes the same comedian as you, podcast as you. Hopefully it can be this one. And so I think like, you
You
know,
might be. Go ahead.
well, no, I was just going to
I
say
just
like,
laughed. Yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was just laughing because when you were talking about traveling for football and stuff, my mind immediately went to staying at the Davis's house.
Oh yeah. The Scream. You you want me to tell a story? I feel like we should save this for
I'm,
another episode, but we gotta tell one hilarious story in the first episode.
yeah.
Okay,
We can definitely let's talk about it because I brought
okay,
it up.
okay. I'll tell my version, and then if you want to add, you can. So okay, so in college, we used to play in this football tournament called Playmakers Bowl. And we lived in Gainesville. And so teams from all over the Southeast and honestly, all over the country at some points, Boston, different places, would come down
Mhm.
for this tournament. It was very competitive. It was a church league, but it was extremely competitive. And so we would travel, and then the church there would host, like lots of teams would stay in hotels or Airbnbs, things like that. But a lot of families would like host some parts of teams. So there was a family that Jordan knew because he interned in Tampa and he lived with his family. So he knew them. And so he worked it out to where our team could stay with this family. And so our team's kind of all around the house, right? Like there's some spare bedrooms. There's some people on the couch. There's some people on sleeping bags on the floor. So me, Jordan, and I think one or two other people are in this room, and like two people are on the floor, and then there's this bed that has like a pull out at the bottom too. So it's like, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I'm sleeping, and all of a sudden I hear the craziest scream I've ever heard in my life to this day. Like it haunts me in my sleep at night. Like this blood curdling scream. And I obviously like hop up, and it's coming from Jordan, and he's just like continually screaming at the top of his lungs, at the top of his lungs. So I'm up, and he's laying down, and so I'm standing over him, and I'm not joking. This is Jordan. I'm not gonna scream as loud as he screamed, but his eyes are like this, right into my eyes, just like this, and he's like, and I'm like, yo, what is? And I'm like, bro, what's wrong? I'm not even joking. I asked him what's wrong. He took a breath. He was like, ah, and I'm like, yo, what is happening? And so, and he can't tell me. He can't tell me. He just keeps screaming, and then he's like pointing down at his legs, and I'm like, what is happening? And so, what ended up being the case is that both of his hamstrings, I think hamstrings or calves,
Mhm. It
just
was my
locked.
hamstrings.
It was like
Hamstrings.
locked up, like Charlie horse, and just wouldn't release. And so eventually I kind of understood. He's like pointing at like grabbing his legs or whatever. And honestly, I can't remember if he was ever able to communicate exactly what was wrong verbally. But so I start like stretching him out or whatever. But it was the craziest thing. That was the craziest story. I was like terrified. I was like, do I need to like call the police? Like, what? I thought someone broke in and stabbed him. Like, I was like, what is going on? So that was my perspective. I'll let Jordan tell his perspective.
Yeah. Oh man. So we just got down there, and that was actually after the first day of games. So we played
Mm,
3 games straight, I believe, 3 or 4 games straight, and then it's how Playmakers is set up. The Friday is like the social event. All the teams get together, just connect, and then Saturday is the first day of games. Sunday is the playoffs and championship. So that was Saturday night. So we played like 4 games straight. So, and at the time I'm 21, 22-ish. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I'm still young, I'm still spry. Like I don't really have to stretch. And Chase can vouch for this. I didn't really do a good job of stretching back in the day. I just would show up and just like, all right, I'm gonna run at full
me too.
speed. And I used to be a track guy. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm not running competitive track out here. So I don't need to really do all those types of stretches. I just need to do a little bit of stretching, but not nothing too crazy, right? So we played 4 games. Mind you, I hadn't been conditioned to really play those games because I didn't really stretch. We're playing 4 games, and there's no cool down. There's no no like run jog a couple of laps or stretch out to finish up. We just play 4 games and then we just chill out. We go eat dinner, we go hang out. So we're back at this family's house, and I go to sleep. And yeah, it was around like 2 or 3 in the morning. My legs just completely lock up, and it felt like somebody was just like someone grabbed my muscles and was just twisting them. So, and I thought I was just dreaming about it. I thought I was dreaming about it until like I could feel the pain in the real world, and then my eyes just open out, and I lost it. I don't know how long I screamed, but apparently I screamed for a long time. And after that scream, man, I was done. I was straight up done. And my boy, my boy was sitting right next to me, and he's like, Jordan, what's wrong with you? I was like, hamstrings. I just had my hand over my eye, and I was basically like crying because of the pain. But it was, I learned my lesson that I probably should be drinking more water. My wife says the same thing. I should be drinking more water, but I did not do a good job of cool down or stretch or drinking water for that matter. So yeah, that was a very painful experience, but we had a good laugh afterwards.
Um,
My man thought, yeah, I was dying. That's
not,
all.
but um, but yeah, man, it's stuff like
The
that.
moral
It's
is
story.
drink water.
Yes, drink water, stretch if you're gonna play football, if you're gonna run, do whatever. Especially as you get older. We were young then, and we were struggling, but but yeah, it was times like that where we could travel, we could have these crazy stories. We have plenty of stories that we'll tell you guys along the way, but yeah, to build those connections. So I think, as we close out here soon, if you need connections in your life, like I hope that you can take some of these principles and just honestly, what Jordan said, I think is the best first step is to minimize it down, to not make it such a huge thing, just to say hello to someone and get to know them and find
Mhm.
people that have similar connections. And I think as you do that, that's when you start to build these connections that you would never think, right? Like Jordan and I, like he said, we clicked right away. And Jordan is someone, I know a lot of people say this about me, that like I can get along with anyone, which to an extent is true. But Jordan is like literally, he can get along with anyone, which is a great quality that he has. And I think I have it to a degree, but not anywhere close to what he has. And so but I think about the fact that, and I'm more so saying for myself, but I think for Jordan as well, is that him and I clicked right away. But as I got older and was able to make connections, that's when I was able to build friendships with people that were nothing like me and still have deep connections. I think about, during our campus years, if people wanted to learn more about God and came to church with us, we'd study the Bible with them and let them get to know God, let them know Jesus, and see if this is something they wanted to do with their life, is become a Christian and live their life this way. And so we got to know a lot of people along the way doing that. And I think about our friend Brian, who is nothing like
Mm.
us, like at all. He's amazing. Like Brian is unbelievable, but he doesn't love the
Yeah,
things that
man.
we love. He doesn't have this affinity for the things that we do. I mean, some things for sure, but he became one of our great friends. And I know him and Jordan are
Yeah.
still super, super close. And that's how Jordan met his wife. Like he was in
Hmm.
Brian's wedding and he was a groomsman, and his now wife, Emily, was a bridesmaid. And that's how they met. And that was because we were able to make this connection with this guy, in college. And, his sister, Brian's sister, introduced us to him. And he wanted to know more about the Bible. We taught him, and he became one of our really, really good friends. And so shout out to Brian. Hopefully he watches this. We love you. And but yeah, like
Yeah.
I think someone like Brian, who's so much different than myself, and and we became really good friends, and we played an important part in each other's lives through college. And I'm so happy that he's doing well. He's married, he has kids, and um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think making those
Yeah,
connections,
that
like
man
Jordan
loving
said,
life in Texas.
yeah, Texas, man, everything's bigger
He,
in Texas, and
he
Brian's
loving
tall,
life in
so
Texas.
yeah, yeah,
Well, it
man.
cracked me up because I was thinking when you were mentioning Brian and we have nothing in common. I was like, the first thing that came to mind about Brian, I was like, yeah, that man's an Eagle Scout. So that man outdoors and stuff. He a survivalist. Brian, if
Oh,
zombie apocalypse comes out, man, that's who I'm hitting up. I'm like, hey, Brian, what we need to be doing?
absolutely, absolutely, and that is neither one of us. Let me tell you.
Straight up, not me.
So
Couldn't be me.
not at all, not at all. But yeah, shout out Brian. But yeah, man. So as we close the podcast, we just want to say thank you again for joining us on this journey. Episode 1. We hope you stick with us for as many episodes as we have. Whether you're watching on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, please follow, like, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your enemies. We'll take any follower that we can get. But we love you, and thank you for joining us in with Denoux featuring Jordan Shannon. We'll be back next week. Signing off.
We out.